Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is James. Today we're going to be taking a look at Ableton's arrangement view. So if you happen to catch the last video, which there should be a link to it up here, where we talked about the session view, this is kind of the follow-up video to that, discussing the other really powerful view in Ableton Live. And actually, I would consider this view to actually be more powerful than the session view because there's a lot of extra tools that'll help you kind of basically just create. All right, so what exactly is the arrangement view? And how do we kind of get to it? So to get to the arrangement view, there's this little button up in the top right corner here with these horizontal lines. If you click that, you're going to be taken into the arrangement view. If you want to go back to the session view, you can just press the vertical columns because, as we mentioned in the session view is vertical, arrangement view is going to be horizontal. And we'll get into that in a second. And then the keyboard shortcut for this, again, these are important to know, is just the tab key. So tab is going to switch you between these two views just to make it a lot quicker navigating, and that's going to save you time in the long run. I definitely recommend to learn those key commands. So what exactly is the arrangement view? In short, you can kind of imagine the layout of it as the session view kind of turned on its side. Instead of having the tracks go vertically, they're now horizontally like this. So you'll notice that these track labels are going to match these on the session view because when you switch to the other view, it's essentially, like I said, turning it 90 degrees and things are now laid out in a timeline sense. So that's what this kind of grid here is. I'm just clicking and dragging. So a lot of the controls are actually moved to the right side here just to kind of save space and maximize the amount of content that you can see in this main view here, so that when you're producing, nothing's getting in your way and it's just really easy to focus on the music part of it rather than kind of the setup and the instrument stuff that's involved. So this kind of is really focused on actually creating content. So like I mentioned, this is set up as a timeline. So if we're to, let's go back to the session view here for a second. So let's create just a few, we'll just create some empty clips for the time being, just as kind of placeholders to show you guys what exactly is going on. So let's just create a few MIDI clips. I'll just double click, I guess, 4 times on each of these tracks. So to get one of these tracks into the arrangement view, there's a few ways you can do it. The first would be to click and drag the clip over here, and then you can drop it. Or if you press tab, if you start to click and drag it and then press tab, then you're still holding it and then you can just drop it wherever. So you'll notice that these kind of green bars show up here. This kind of shows that that's basically a clip, what it's going to look like in the arrangement view. So just to kind of show you guys what it would actually look like if you had notes in here, we can pull up this piano roll here. You can just click and drag this little bar. And just for example, I'm just going to put just one note so you guys can see how it's going to be displayed. So now you'll notice that this is that note that we just drew, and we made that note the whole length of the clip, so these 4 bars here. So it starts at 1 and it goes to 2, which is 1 full measure. And so that is going to show up like this. It's going to give you basically a small preview of what's actually in the clip so that you know what's kind of being played at that time. So then when you go to press the play button here, it'll kind of scroll through, as you'll see there, and it'll give you kind of a live view of where it is in the clip, what to kind of expect and what notes are being played at that time. And then if you want to loop a clip, you can just, if you hover over the right side or left side, you can just click and drag it, and it's going to just keep repeating it over and over again. So now if we play that, it's going to get to the end here. You see that track bar get to the end, then it jumps back to the start, and it's just going to keep doing that until it reaches the end here. So that's kind of how, you'll see like a lot of music producers will kind of make one melody and then repeat it over and over again. So instead of having to sit there and copy paste every single note or every single clip, you can just write it once and then drag it. So speaking of kind of dragging things, you can kind of move clips around. So if you just click and drag, you can move it later in the timeline or earlier, or put it on a different MIDI track, things like that. The one thing that you can't do, again, is drag it onto an audio track. If you do that, it's just going to change to a MIDI track because, again, audio isn't something that can be kind of created. It's not an instrument, so you can't load MIDI into an audio track. That's just not how that would work. So if you want to actually create a clip in this view, what you're going to do is you're going to select how many bars you want that clip to be, and then you can just do right click, insert MIDI clip, or you can do right click, Control Shift M. Again, keyboard commands are going to save you a lot of time. So you can kind of, without having to go back and forth between the session view, you can just have, you can stay in the arrangement view and just kind of create clips on the fly. So if you want a 2-bar clip, you can click and drag, select 2 bars, Control Shift M, create a clip, and then just start entering in notes, you know, however you want. You notice that they're showing up here. And if you want to get a little bit more precise, you can always zoom in, and it's going to kind of expand the track and kind of zoom in so that you can get a little bit more precise. You'll notice that the grid is now subdivided, so there's a lot more precision in between each bar. So before, we only had these 2 main lines here, but now we have all of these lines. I believe there's about 16 in between those 2. So now you have much more granular control of where things are going to be placed. So that just kind of helps with arranging things. So if you want to create a new track in this view, there's a few ways you can do it. You can always just come over here, right click, insert audio or MIDI track. You can do that. Or you'll also notice these quick commands here. You can do Control T, which is going to create an audio track, or you can press Control Z to undo, or Control Shift T is going to give you a MIDI track. So again, that's just going to save you time, and always learn those. And then if you want to rename these tracks, you can just do Control R and then type in whatever you want. Let's just drums, and then Control R again and be like lead, something like that, just to keep it organized. You can also recolor these, right click, and you'll see all these colors, so you can set it to whatever color you want, just to kind of keep things organized. If you want all drums to be blue, then you can right click and select all those different tracks to be blue, so that you can kind of quickly recognize one track from another, so that you don't kind of get confused. It just makes it a little bit easier to organize things. So you've kind of seen me do this before. If you just double click on a track here, it's going to open it up in the piano roll. So say you're looking at this clip and you want to get into this clip here. If you just click or double click, if it's on another track, it's going to open it so that you can just instantly start editing, and you're not wasting time trying to go back to the session view or anything like that. So you can just double click. One thing I do want to note though is when a clip is taken from the session view to the arrangement view, if you edit the clip in the arrangement view, it's not going to update the clip here. That's one thing I didn't really understand when I first started using this, because I always used to make edits in the arrangement view, and then I'd go to play it here. Essentially what this is doing, this is making a duplicate of it. It's not actually the same exact clip. So that's one thing to keep in mind, because like I said, it did definitely confuse me. So this is a completely separate copy. So if you make any edits to a clip in the arrangement view, it's not going to be transferred over to the session view. You can, however, click and drag and then drag it into the session view and then have that available, but they are not by default connected. And then just kind of going over these controls on the right here. So what we have here, let's use the audio track for an example, because this has all the controls you're going to normally see. So this 5 here is yellow because the track is currently playing. If you want to mute one track, you can just click that, and no sound is going to come from that track until you click it again to make it yellow. Yellow means that sound is going to play and that it's an active track. Now, if you want to mute everything else and only hear that track, that's this solo button here. You'll notice everything else gets grayed out, because that's only going to play the sound from this current horizontal row. So that's really helpful if you're trying to find like an annoying frequency or something like that, and you're not sure where it's coming from. You can just go through and solo all the different tracks until you finally hear what you're looking for or something like that, so that nothing else is kind of interfering. It really helps with mixing and mastering. It's a very useful tool. Now, this button here with this little music note, it's only going to appear on a MIDI track, because what that's doing is it's known as arming it. So that allows you to use your computer keyboard. You'll notice here if I hit keys on the keyboard between the A and L, let's see, let me unsolo this. So you'll see that those little dots there show up, and they kind of jump up and down. That's showing that a note is playing, and that'll only happen on a track that has this red arm button enabled. So if I want to play another instrument, I can select this one, and now all of my controls from the keyboard are being sent to that instrument. And then if I want to change it to another instrument, again, same thing. Just press that, and your keyboard, or whatever, like if you have a MIDI keyboard or something like that, all of the notes you're playing on that external instrument are going to be transferred to whatever track has that little red track enabled. Now, if you wanted to record audio, similarly, they have this red, let's see, let's just set this to resampling, there we go, just for example. So now if we're going to record something, you're gonna want that track to be red like this. So now if we were to press this record button up here, that's what this circle is, you'll see that it's starting to actually create an audio track. This is what I was talking about before, how you can only create an audio track by either dragging in a sample or recording it yourself. So you can see that as time is progressing, it's slowly creating a larger and larger audio track, but since nothing's being played, nothing's gonna show up. So that's kind of what this arming button here would do. If I didn't have that selected and I press record, it's not gonna record or anything because this track is not set to record. Then under that, what we have here is volume control. So if you just click and drag up and down, you're gonna change volume, and that is in decibels. So, you know, it's a pretty granular way of adjusting volume. So basically, you know, it's gonna start off at about 0, but you know, don't be afraid to actually bring levels down really low, because it's a lot better to bring all of your levels down and then kind of bring everything back up in the master track, which is something we're gonna be talking about in the intermediate tutorials. But it's just, it gives you a lot more room to work. It's almost like in photography, if you were to take a picture outside, you don't want to have the highlights really blown out, because then you can't recover any information from that. But if you keep the image kind of dark in, you know, on the computer, then you can kind of recover some of that information and get a better image. And then the last main thing here is this C. So if you drag up and down, it's going to pan either to the left or the right. So it's from 50 would be all the way to the left, and then 30 or 50 would be all the way to the right there, depending on the R or the L. And then you can just press this little orange button to return it to the center. So that's going to shift the audio to the left speaker or the right speaker, however much you're setting that number to. If it's all the way 50, it's going to be just on one side, depending on which one you've chosen. And then these down here, these little negative infinity, I'm not going to get into this right now, but these are going to be sending audio to what are known as return tracks, which are down here, but that's a more advanced tutorial because they are actually very complicated. So I'm going to get into those in the next time. But that's kind of a pretty decent overview, I think, of the arrangement view. If you guys have any questions, again, leave them in the comments below. And if there's anything else specifically you guys want to see, just let me know. I'm definitely open to suggestions. So I hope you guys enjoy these tutorials. I'm trying to make as many as I can. Let me, again, know if you guys have any questions, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.